We're in conversation with Ling Hai, the President for International Markets at Mastercard. Thank you very much for talking to Moneycontrol. Give us a sense of, the mood you're picking up at Davos this year, and what does it say about the world we are living in?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, first of all, I think, based on the Mastercard Economic Institute's forecast, I think what we're seeing is that the direction of travel is easing inflation, continued global expansion. Obviously, there are still spots of uncertainty, geopolitical conflict, potentially more disruption in the supply chain. So how that is going to impact commodity price, for example, will be a pretty big question. China is a big question. India is a big bright spot. And of course, another topic that's really hot this year is AI. It's everywhere in Davos.
Right. Are you seeing a dichotomy? Because, yesterday when we were talking to other CEOs, they said globally CEOs are a little pessimistic because of the geopolitics at play. But India seems to be more optimistic. At least that's the sense I got. Is that what you're getting? What is your sense?
I think overall there is actually a lot of optimism actually looking at this year, but there's also a lot of uncertainty still, obviously. So, certain things you just cannot predict. But back to your question on India, I definitely think there's a lot of optimism about India. If you look at all the fundamentals, right, you look at the demographics of India, you look at the cost of living issue, you look at the easing inflation that's happening around the world, but also in India. You look at the spending power of the country, the export services sector. I think a lot of things are going really strong for India. These are the strong fundamentals. And those are the things that would be good for the economic growth of the country. So fundamentally, I bring this back to one word, confidence. When people feel confident about tomorrow, and I think there's a lot of that in India, that is going to drive growth, that's going to drive spend, that's going to drive continued optimism.
Right. One trend that we've noticed, and this, especially in India, is this K-shaped pattern that we're seeing in the economy. And I think that's also getting reflected in different parts of the world. Where the level of affluence is going up. So on the one hand, the number of affluent people are going up, but there is some level of inequality. But how does this play into your plans at Mastercard? It's a good thing, right, if the level of affluence is going up in many markets?
Well, first of all, I will say Mastercard is a global network. We are here to serve all consumers. It's not one segment of consumers versus the other. So that is one thing I want to talk about. But the second thing is, I think you actually hit on the point, which is what a lot of the countries are doing, but also in particular India. That is, you need to make sure the rising tides raise all boats and you don't have this tremendous disparity. And I think the key to that is really the SME segment. We may talk about that as well in greater depth. But in the end, you look at what India has done, right? The whole digitization efforts, the financial inclusion efforts, is meant to address this issue about the haves and have-nots, to give equal access to digital means of conducting transactions and carrying on life. But the whole thing around financial inclusion, SMEs are so important in India, right? They're a big contributor to the GDP growth and exports. So the way that we are actually now working in India in terms of making contributions, making investments in terms of addressing the SME segment, I think is going to address the issue you talked about. It's not going to be the only solution, but it's one of the solutions. But in the end, I think that is going to benefit all consumers. Guess where the affluent customers come from? A lot of them started as SMEs, right? Small business, and that's how they build their business and build their wealth. So it's actually really important.
Tell us a little about that. What are your plans, for SMEs? How are you engaging with them?
Maybe first I talk about globally. This is a very important topic. We actually set out a goal like in 2015 to talk about bringing 500 million consumers into the formal financial system, excluded individuals into the formal financial system. We accomplished that objective by 2020. And now we have raised the overall goal to 1 billion. So adding another half a billion to achieve 1 billion financially included individuals by 2025. Now, in addition to this number, there's also 50 million SMEs. So that's the SME bit. And there's also 25 million of women-owned businesses. So in terms of the efforts, and I'll bring this to India. So there's several levels you look at, right? In terms of how you actually help SMEs. Some of that is really around education, financial literacy, help people understand how to run a business, how to look at a P&L, a balance sheet, right? So we have this effort in India called Strive India, which is really meant to give entrepreneurs the right tools and education and help so that they can actually run a business. So that's one example. Another example would be our Farmers Pass. Oftentimes, it's the lack of access. So we actually created this digital platform that connects small farmers directly to the financial, but also the agricultural ecosystem. They have access to like a fair market conditions, but also fair prices. So that's another great example of providing tools and digital tools to create access. And the last one I would use is ultimately what is financial inclusion? How do we help with SMEs? It is the financing aspect. It's getting capital, right? How do you start a business? I need funding. And oftentimes SMEs are viewed as too risky. So lenders will be reluctant to lend them. How do we actually create additional analytics to help with the lending? And an example I would give you is 2021, we actually partnered with the HDFC Bank, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, but also USAID to create this $100 million in credit facility to precisely to address the issue that I raised, that is access to finance.
Right. You've also overseen a market that saw the emergence and growth of digital payments through mobile phones. How do you see the current payments market, in the markets that you serve? How is it evolving?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole digital mobile evolution definitely is a trend here to stay. And it's not just developing countries, right? I live in London today, whether it's about going to the tube or whether it's paying for a coffee, people actually use their phones now, right? The underlying transactions still go through the cards and the card network, but the form factor, the interface is actually through a phone and a contactless. So I think this whole mobile payment is here to stay and that will continue to evolve. But with digital, though, I think another very important thing to get right is really cybersecurity. In the digital world, whether you're talking about Japan or whether you're talking about the Philippines or India, fraud is an emerging issue. And oftentimes they target the most vulnerable population, the elderly population, or the SMEs who lack the knowledge and financial knowledge to actually understand how to protect themselves. This is where I think banks and the global networks like us will step in and use the technology to help protect our consumers.
Right. I also wanted to understand the whole payments journey, right? I mean, we've seen so many innovations from wallets to QR codes to mobile payments. Do you think card innovation has kept pace with the changing times, especially for mobile-based customers? I mean, NFC tap and pay is one example, but has it kept pace with what the other forms of innovation that we have seen?
Yeah, I think it has. Actually, card sometimes becomes a misnomer, right? It is just a way to refer to the underlying wallet. In fact, the manifestation of that, underlying wallet could be a card, could be a digital wallet, could be your fingerprint down the road, right? So if you think about what we have done, whether this is using contactless as a technology, but also tokenization, anonymizing the data that's out there, all of that is to enable these emerging technologies. Like I said, today it's phone, and I think that's here to stay. Mobile will be the for the foreseeable future will be here. But I would also argue, who knows, down the road, your credential may just be bundled with your biometrics. You don't even need a phone anymore, right? So I think the form factors will continue to evolve. What has not changed is the underlying wallet. People have to park some money in a wallet, and that wallet then has to be used to make payments. And I think we have actually done a great deal in terms of creating better consumer experience. And I talked about contactless tokenization, but also at the same time protect consumers' safety and security. So the ease of use and the safety actually have to come together, and that's where the innovation has come.
Right. You had also mentioned in the past about that, business-to-business payments is a good growth opportunity. What are you doing there, and how big can this potentially be?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. In fact, there's still so many unsolved needs. I think today the biggest issue is when business conduct transactions with other businesses, the invoicing, the ordering, the invoicing, the payments all disaggregated. So, I may place 2 orders and I may make 3 payments for these 2 orders, but in addition to another order that I placed 2 months ago. So the reconciliation, oftentimes doing your books, reconciliation become a very tall challenge. So what we have, using our technology, using our virtual number, we have created this mechanism where we enable business to receive payment, 1, more timely, but also 2, make the process more efficient, make reconciliation much easier. And I think so there's still a lot of inefficiency in the system that can be taken out, and that's a big opportunity for us. We're doing a great deal in the online travel space, enabling travel agencies to pay hotels and airlines because they're collecting money, right, from the consumers. But there's actually many, many other verticals that have the same needs. So huge opportunity. Cross-border is also a big unsolved pain point. So, there's a lot of players in the ecosystem that are coming together to look at this, provide different solutions. In the end, we are the network. We sit in the middle. We can facilitate other players in terms of innovation.
Mastercard Send.
That's just one of the enablers. There's also cross-border remittances that we do. There's also just card-based solutions, like I said, using the virtual card number. So there are many, many means to deliver on this solution.
Right. Finally, you spoke about cybersecurity, but also tell us about AI. How are you planning to leverage that? How can you leverage that at Mastercard?
Yeah. So it's a very big topic in Davos, and it's really key for us because in the digital space, you will have bad actors trying to leverage technology to do bad things, and AI probably can become an enablement for them. So we spend, if you look at the last 5 years, we spent $7 billion in terms of cybersecurity, and AI is a very important component of that, right? On an annual basis, we prevent something like 125 billion transactions from being hacked. So protecting transactions is a very important job, and AI is very critical in this equation. So what I would say is cybersecurity is a good use case for AI, and you will continue to see the evolution of this technology, how sophisticated it will get, right? Right now, I give you an example. We have this tool where even if you have my username, password, you use my phone, you can get into my account because the underlying AI engine is analyzing the behavioral pattern, and it will be able to say that's not Ling Hai, even though everything else is right. So to give those additional layer of protection is the use case for AI, right? And for e-government services, you don't want your government accounts to be hacked, right? In Singapore, we use our AI solution to provide a second layer of protection. So those are the examples. But I also maybe mention another thing since we're talking about AI. AI is really good for safety, security, cybersecurity, but AI is also a very good enablement for personalization. So loyalty, right? We're in the payments business. Oftentimes we have rewards and points. How do we tailor offers that are most relevant for the individual? It's not one size fits all. AI will have that ability to use behavioral analysis and make the offers more relevant and personalize, the loyalty programs. That's something I think also is a very relevant use case for AI.
Great. On that note, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.